It's indeed a great pleasure for me to extend a very warm welcome to the wonderful panelists, Mr. Anantharaman, Country Head, Shell India, and Mrs. Kupulakshmi Krishnamurthy, my good friend and the Global Head of Zoho for Startups. Today we are here for another insightful session by Business Standard Learning, when both of the wonderful speakers are here to speak about how the customer experience is evolving post-COVID and how it will be in the future. On behalf of Business Standard, I also welcome the professors and the faculty and the future leaders, the management students who are joining from across the country, from Jammu to Kanyakumari this evening, from Amritsar to Kolkata. We have participants registrations from across the country, from IIM, IIT and various B schools across the country. So we look forward to a lot of insights from both the wonderful speakers. The customer experience landscape has seen disruption over the last few years. Organizations now offer more seamless and simpler customer experiences, taking it to a new level. So over to Ms. Kupulakshmi and Anantharaman for the more insights and inspiration. Participants are requested to please type your questions in the Q&A box so that during the conversation both the speakers can see it, and Kupu can also help in taking the best questions and getting it answered by either by Mr. Anantharaman or by Ms. Kupulakshmi. So over to Kupu. And sorry, before Kupu starts, it's customary for me to introduce her, because most of you will know Kupulakshmi Krishnamurthy is fondly known as Kupu, and she heads the Zoho for Startup program globally. She has been part of Zoho's growth story for about a decade, focusing on strategic alliances between Zoho and various startup bodies such as state governments, incubators, accelerators, and other stakeholders. She is also a mentor to various startups and guides them on pitching, design thinking, and setting up the vision and culture of the startup. Kupu is a sought-after keynote speaker on various topics like future skills, emotional intelligence, and human element of technology. Kupulakshmi believes that the best way to live life is to be useful to others and strives to find a balance between giving and taking. Kupu is an active volunteer with various socially impacting projects, a talented storyteller. She reads a lot of non-fiction, writes, sings, paints, dances, and practices sustainable living. She is also a foodie who can cook. Underline, a hands-on mom to a super active 8-year-old daughter. She has plans for pets. Over to Kupu and Mr. Anand for more insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Jairam. Thank you for the warm welcome. I feel like we are already standing in front of all the wonderful audiences, me and Anand. And it's a delight always to work with you. And, it's an honor to be introduced and expanding network to various people out there. So good evening, one and all. It's my pleasure to be here and also, to hold the privilege this evening to ask some questions on your behalf to Anant, who is our main guest today. So it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Anantharaman Gopalakrishnan on this evening. Today we will, as we talk about the evolving customer experience, it is my pleasure to introduce Anantharaman Gopalakrishnan, who is fondly known as Anant. And I got to speak to him this morning. And we really know how people in power hold responsibility in style. And one of the most important lessons in management, we learn that, with great power comes great responsibility. So I'm sure you are all going to be listening, fine-tuning, making notes this evening, because I had a wonderful time in conversation with him this morning. kind of backstage. And see, to talk about this topic, when you think why Jairam and Business Standard has brought forward a person who actually heads sales and operation for Shell retail business in India, one has to be a really strong believer, right, in wanting to make a difference in people's life. So unless that person firmly believes as an individual where his passion really lies in delivering business results, not just in terms of numbers and all those fashionable graphs that you see that are part of the boardroom conversations. It is very important. It's such a delight to have a human conversation that steers the conversation and the focus more than just numbers, talking about what he believes, the learnings from his life, what he calls the golden circle. Why, how, and what of things. So it's a delight for me to welcome him, someone who truly values the power of trusting relationships and coaching. And he's someone who follows Simon Sinek talk shows a lot. I've also been a great fan because I believe in the why of things, the crux of things that matters. So here we are welcoming someone who keeps himself active by playing squash, and he loves running. And you can see him often, I guess, post-COVID, back on his road trip with his wife and 2 daughters. So this morning we caught up on some of the prime areas of customer experience and mapping it back to the incredible years of experience that Anant has, and how we can look forward to using many minutes of a conversation focusing on this topic, where each of us have tons of notes as takeaways. So Anant, I welcome you on behalf of Business Standard and all the students and faculty that have gathered together this evening to hear you. It's such a pleasure. We have 200 plus audience that have joined us this evening, and it's my honor to ask you a few questions. And to the audience, I request that you use the chat or the Q&A section there to ask questions, and I can frame it in a nice way, and on your behalf, I can ask Anant. So Anant, welcome, and please share few words as a welcome note as we warm up.
Thank you very much, Kupu. I don't think there's anything more from my side to really add on, apart from the fact that you made me a lot uncomfortable in a way by putting me on a spot and on a high pedestal. So, but thank you very much for the introduction that you did about me, and I indeed echo the thoughts that you just shared about our conversations in the morning. It was equally a pleasure knowing you, Kupu, and I think between the two of us, we hope we are able to deliver value for the 200 plus participants who have joined into this webinar. Just to kind of maybe set a little bit of context on what I'm looking forward to from this webinar, I'm really looking at learning a few stuff. Sharing my perspectives might be right, might not be right for a lot of people. It's purely my experience, but I'll only be glad if it is of utility for people who are listening in, and I will surely really rely upon your able shoulders, Kupu, to foster the conversations in such a way that we get the best out of this whole webinar. But otherwise, I'm here to learn. I'm here to listen, and a few things that I'm able to share, I will surely do that. There are a few things that I'm assuming I will surely learn from you, Kupu, as well as from the participants, basis their questions and maybe some reflections from them as well. So game on. Thank you very much.
That is so wonderful to hear from you, and to start the evening, the most predictable question that justifies the title of our conversation this evening, Anand. This is a time, of course, the pandemic has been much spoken about, the uncertainty with it. Now, when we talk about evolving customer experience, I believe that relies on the body language, the face-to-face conversations, the human-to-human interactions. Now, when we are all forced almost like overnight to go online, what are your opening thoughts on how customer experience is evolving from your experience and in general, both?
I guess, Kupu, to be really straight on what COVID has hit on to, say, at least anyone who is running a customer-focused business, any brand that's running customer-focused business like Shell does. I think it's really the whole aspect of the safety and health that's really of paramount importance in anybody's mind. So I'm looking at it from a pure perspective of me as a customer, my family, my parents. What is going through in their mind, in my mind, is precisely what I'm seeing is going through my team's mind, my retailers, service champions who are there at our retail sites mind, because this is precisely what we are seeing from the customers who are visiting us as well. So I think anybody who is directly in the business of rendering service to customer through their products and services, the paramount importance would really be around safety and health. As long as the perception around safety and health is ensured, I guess retailers are here to stay. Yeah, there would be a lot of changes that would happen, and I don't think disruption is new to any one of us. We've been all going through different types of disruption. Kodak has gone through disruption, say, about 30 years back, right? And a few people have remained resilient. A few brands have remained resilient. A few brands have reimagined themselves. And I think the key would be that they continue to be present. They continue to listen to their own people first, the people who are representing their brand. They continue to listen through them what the customers are seeking out for. And if we're being honest to ourselves, I guess the evolution is something that will surely happen. It's only when an acknowledgement that doesn't happen. Yeah. Oh no, world is changing, but nothing is going to impact me. And I think that's the biggest enemy in any kind of age. And I don't think it's any different from what we are all going through due to COVID as well. So it's very real what we are all going through, and COVID has actually hit every life. That's the only difference. Maybe few other disruptions would have hit only a few industries or a few markets or a few countries or a few people in a particular socioeconomic platform. But COVID, I think, has hit everyone. And thereby the realization of how brands need to evolve around their customer experience, I think as long as they are remaining real, it's all going to happen in the positive way.
I think that's one of the constant reminders that we all have every day, right? As much as we think about our mortality, how one invisible virus is changing the way the world looks. I remember, when we've been in the workforce for quite a while, I want to know what are the core things that Shell looked at, because I've seen from my experience as a customer how Shell has evolved. Walking into a petrol bunk has never been the same experience before. I remember those initial days when I remember going wow about, from the time, from a small city that I was born, where petrol bunks would just serve the purpose. There's nothing interesting about these bodies. But today you see, especially Shell, I remember from my training experience, using case studies where beyond numbers, convincing stakeholders, internal people, to build a brand that will really focus towards customer experience. So when you talk about Shell, the evolution from serving the customers, just drive in, get yourself refueled and go. How did it evolve? What actually happened that made Shell look more seriously and in a very, an interesting, fun, real, like you said, a real way of, what happened exactly? And first-hand experience we want to learn from you. I've always studied this from an outsider view, from McKinsey's report, from all the wonderful news Shell is making. Some of us, I think, are connected via LinkedIn. But as a first-hand experience, what drove Shell? When did you start looking at customer experience? Let's look at these two areas first, and I'll probably ask the second half once we hear from you, Anand.
Sure, Kupu. So, if I were to kind of look at the whole evolution of, see, amongst many businesses that Shell does, I'm a part of the Royal Dutch Shell Group, specifically the downstream part of the business and representing the retail business here in India. And the group has got diversified business interest, and I'm just representing one part of the business, which is the retail business. And for the group, it is the most customer focused business for Shell globally, and not only in this country, because this is a product that everybody gets in touch with on a day-to-day basis. But when I look at the evolution, I think this is where I would try to resonate to my own personal beliefs. Yeah, and my personal beliefs, it's a great unison of what I have believed in is where I'm choosing to work. Yeah, and that's precisely what I've seen within Shell in the last 12 years. The group has always been customer focused. Yeah, they've always been customer focused. They've always been looking at what do real people want. Yeah, and specifically this business. And if you see everything that we are doing in India, nothing is potentially anything new that Shell hasn't done in any of the other countries. Yeah, so nothing new in that respect. The beauty of a global organization is while customer needs and the whole demand ecosystem is evolving, and most likely it evolves first in the West and then it comes to the East, the group has already been there, done that. Yeah, so that's one greatest part of being a part of a global multinational company like Shell. So when certain things come to our country, we are able to quickly learn because we are a very close knit, highly engaged kind of an organization, and great working relationship between the global teams and the local teams. Yeah, and the global teams' relevance itself in Shell is how can they be of help to the local units, and we truly believe in empowered frontline. Yeah, so what I mean by empowered frontline is, say, for the global Royal Dutch Shell, I am the empowered frontline. Yeah, the countries are where the business is run by real people serving real customers. So they recognize that. What do I do in my space is I also believe in the same empowered frontline, which means the people in my team are the true customers for me. I serve them even before I serve my real customer. So what it provides is an ecosystem of learning and feedback that is bottoms up. Yeah, so we might start thinking that there's something that a customer needs and we might pilot certain things. But if the ecosystem of learning is not bottoms up, then I might be beating myself on my foot. Yeah, because I'm not connected with the market. I'm not connected with the customer. So if you look at the whole evolution, it follows that golden principle of Simon Sinek, the one that you spoke about. Yeah, why we do what we do is an extremely important element for us, and it's a very, very important element for me as well. So I always look at answering that core part of that question. So why am I doing what I'm doing? If that purpose is very clear, and in Shell, if I were to kind of see the business that I'm running, we truly want to make a meaningful difference in people's life. Yeah. Now you look at this as a purpose. It's very, very difficult to measure it. Yeah, do I have a KPI metrics by which I can measure how am I making meaningful difference in people's life? No, it's not possible, and we don't intend to also. Yeah, I think what is important is people who run this business, say my service champions, my retailers, my team that governs and guides and coaches the team. It's important for all of us to feel whether we are indeed making meaningful difference in people's life. And for me, the purpose is that am I making meaningful difference in my own team's life? Yeah. So let me leave alone the customer. If I'm able to make sure that my team is coming with their best and going by the end of the day thinking that they did far more better than what they thought they could do, I think I've done my job. Yeah, I've served my purpose in that sense. So every day it's a realization, it's a feeling. It's the same thing that we are trying to inculcate with everybody who is working in our team. So my service champion who is serving my customer, I would ideally want him or her to also feel this. Am I making a meaningful difference in, say, my colleague's life, my retailer's life, my customer's life? Because then you have an happy ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everything that we do to serve that purpose is really about how we go about doing it. So once you're clear about your why, then you get to that second concentric circle, which is the how. Yeah. Then the whole process comes in. What we do on how we measure some of these aspects, whether it is housekeeping, grooming standards, creating wow moments for the staff, for the customers. Is my service station always working? Is it well lit? Is it inviting? Is it feeling safe for my customers and my staff? So everything that we do will be to serve that purpose. And towards the end, the final concentric circle is what really is a tip of the iceberg, which is what maybe my shareholder will see. It might be my profits, my volumes, the top line and the bottom line numbers. Yeah, the shareholders, customers, everybody gets to only see the tip of the iceberg, which is the what. Yeah, and that's in my view a by the way outcome of getting your why right, getting your how right, and thereby the business is a far more holistic business that it is able to put the money back into reinvesting. So everything that we have done in this space has come from this thinking. So I just thought I'll at least spend some time around without even getting into the specifics around the thinking that has helped us, me, to get to do what we are doing in terms of evolving our office.
That is wonderful. See, one very important takeaway for me in this few minutes that you shared is only the tip of the iceberg is always visible to the outside world. And most of the times that the hard work that you put into it, this is especially an area should be of interest for our audience today. I see there are faculty, there is students from these schools, because now, how much ever we try to, learn the theoretical and the practical side of things, especially now when we are talking about customer experience. Many of the students might have, exposure already, maybe as working as interns or have had a job before. For me, the important takeaway from yours is this generation, especially now, the millennials, post-millennials, the Gen Z, I think we need more stories firsthand that talk about the sweat and the toil and how many times we go in concentric circles and get lost. But what is visible to the outside world is only the outcome.
True.
It is very important for especially the B school students to learn the psychology behind success stories. The number of times the iteration happens on whiteboard, very human conversations, right? For me, it is fascinating always to read through these elements, though I'm from a tech background, which is why I think when Jairam came to me with this topic, I just couldn't say no. I could just go on with this topic forever. Especially now, see, this is a lot of connecting the dots for us. If you see, especially I can say I'm an 80s kid. I'm not a kid, but 80s kid. In that time, there's no internet, right? In 2000 is when we had the Y2K problem. And then slowly there was a 50 to 100 rupees per hour internet that was available. What was customer experience was very physical. And it was these small mom and pop stores. And now when you think and look back, it's very ordinary and boring. Now, how much more interesting can you make this customer experience, where I see from where we talk about what we sell via Zoho, the software we sell, we talk about customer experience as CX. Just like you will talk about user interfaces, UI and all of that. CX for me is like a non-living thing. CX is just a thing that it gives me no pulse. It does not give goosebumps. it doesn't make you emotional. I would like for you to throw some light on, especially to our audience today. We are talking about young students who, most of the time, you can't blame them. You see only the tip of the iceberg. Most of the time, the journey is forgotten. We talk about, unfortunately for younger generation, we talk about instant gratification. But look at you, you're like 20 years into this where, okay, today you're saying I'm still learning. So can we throw some light on how these things go hand in hand? I have to be a continuous learner. I have to, as an individual, believe in customer delight, no more customer experience. How, as an individual, can I grow these qualities in myself? You know, over a period of time, if I'm starting off as an intern in an organization, how do I hone my personality? What are the areas to look at? Where not only do I have a business formal academic qualification, but in this ever evolving future that we talk about, the World Economic Forum always talks about, it kept defining what skills we need in 2020. What are the skills that, went out of fashion in 2015? And interestingly, list is negotiation skills. You have to be a team player. Where exactly in an internship do I learn this? How do I be more firsthand? How do I match my personality is my question. When I define success, I want you to be, make it more loud and clear. It cannot be instant. So what are your life lessons? Some pages from your personal experience that we cannot read from your LinkedIn post or any of your social media posts. If you can share with us, we are all yours. And then I'm picking some questions from the audience. We're warming up. Sure. More questions coming to you. Yeah.
Sure, Kupu. And just to put certain context, one, I don't think I need to tell that I'm at home, so are all of you as well. So you would see mostly my parents who are working at the background. So please don't get distracted. It's just the normal ways of life. And when I'm speaking, it's a home. So there'll be my kids who will come and hug me and go and ask me a few questions. So please bear with me on that.
You shouldn't be even saying that, And I'm just, I have my kiddo right here, trying to get my attention like a little pup. I think the younger generation has to get used to this. What is real informal situation? So go ahead. We love to see all of those, family members walking by. Thanks, Anand. Yeah.
So life lessons, Kupu, it's huge. I mean, it's pretty profound as well when you speak about something like this. But I think I would not beat myself too very hard, if I can say that. How was I when I passed out of my college? Did I have the same clarity on what I wanted to do? Did I get a clarity on my why? I seem to be talking about this why right now. It's very high. This why is very high on my head now. But I wasn't like this. I was completely not like this. It took a while. And I think when I'm looking at my own journey, Kupu and all is, and I think it should be very similar to you also, Kupu, because you've got a very accomplished career yourself. And please feel free to compliment some of the thoughts that I'm trying to bring in over here. When I started my career, see, I was a mechanical engineer by profession. I was very clear in my head that I didn't want to do a technical job. I loved physics in my school. That led me to take up mechanical engineering as a stream. So let me think through how I took certain decisions and steered my thing. I loved physics as a subject. It was very logical. I was able to feel it. I was able to use it in my daily life. So it wasn't a concept that I wasn't able to personalize. So I understood one thing about me, that I'm someone who needs to feel some of these things. Chemistry, for example, very, very hard for me to comprehend. It was like that, and it continues to be like that. So which I can't see, I can't feel, I can't visualize. So what it led is, post my 4 years of engineering, I was very clear that I don't want to be dealing with machines, surely. What led to me was understanding me as a person, is I love being with people. And every time I used to move one of my friends in any which ways, yeah, it could be very, very small aspects in a daily life. It gave me a lot of happiness. I'm sure it is a case with a lot of people, right? By human nature, we are all good. Yeah, we think good, we do good. So I was very clear that I need to be with people and I need to move people in any capacity that I can be in. So thereby, I was very clear that I will do a job that involves a lot of meeting of people. So thereby, sales. Yeah. So I got into hard cold sales, channel management, and voila, it was fantastic. Yeah. So meeting people, um, getting people to do certain things that they believe they can't, be it my distributors, dealers, or my colleagues, gave me a whole new high. Yeah. So, and I think that helped me to understand myself a lot more better. The choice of roles, if I were to kind of see, I never compromised on what kind of roles I wanted to do. Yeah. If it didn't give me the innate happiness, then I would not do it. Yeah. It's not a case that I did something that I didn't find a happiness. In fact, I chose roles that I very clearly knew is synced to my strengths. In the name of stretching yourself, in the name of putting yourself in an uncomfort zone, I didn't pick up anything that wasn't me. Yeah. So the first and primemost thing, personally for me, is we know who we are, and thereby we need to pick up certain things that are associated with it. Stretch comes from each of these assignments. Uncomfort zones come in each of these assignments. I don't need to go and pick up a tech role, say for example, yeah, because I'm not good at it. I'm just not good at it. So, in the name of taking certain stretched assignments, if I were to go and pick up a tech role, I don't think my organization is going to be happy. Neither am I going to be happy. So, that's piece number one. So, I very clearly knew what I wanted to do and I continued in a very similar. So, ever since I did my first role post my college till now, my core has been around building sales, building customer value propositions, building business models, moving people to do fundamentally different things that they believe they couldn't do. Yeah, and creating those aha moments, either for my own employees or my customers. So that has remained the same. That hasn't changed at all. So that continues. So in my assessment, what it does is you're playing to your strengths, you're learning as you go by, because every role has been different for me in many sense. And it happens that you get to meet some mentors. And once again, this is not something that you can what do you call, force fit. Yeah, if I were to kind of say, personally for me, mentor is like your wife. Yeah. It takes, or rather your partner, spouse. Yeah. It's over a period of time that the mentor that I have today in my life, and it's just that one person, I didn't know that he's going to be my mentor when I first met him. Yeah, it took a while. So things take time, whether it is about understanding yourself, whether about it is about understanding why you do what you do, and it's through experiences. That so I would not believe that people should beat themselves hard that the moment you get out of the college, I will need to solve the world hunger or be very clear on what I need to do. Don't need to at all. Just know yourself. Look out for those mentors in your path, because mentors, let me tell you, will create magic within you. Yeah, these are the guys who exactly know your comfort zones and pieces where you're not comfortable with. They know how to push you. They know how to get the best out of you. They will let you know what is good and what is bad for you. Yeah. So looking out for mentors is an extremely important element. Once again, cannot be force fit, but it gets done when you build trust with people. So thereby trusting relationships, extremely important. I think when all of these things falls in place, you are very clear. You're very, very clear on why you're doing what you're doing. If you're not getting happiness, and I'm telling some really fundamental aspects over here, Kupu, I'm sure it is the same with you as well. At the end of the day, if you're not happy, and if I don't get a kick in the morning to get up from the bed to do what I'm doing, then I don't think the job is doing anything to me. Yeah. So I'm constantly looking at that particular aspect. Every day, am I getting excited to get out of the bed and serve my purpose, which is to make meaningful difference in people's life? Yeah. And every little experience that I'll have through the day will give me that path towards that journey. Yeah, but Kupu, why don't you also reflect some of your own reflections on your own life lessons from the experience that you have had?
Absolutely. So first, I'll tell you why I was nodding so vigorously. Some of the lessons from the pages of your life that you were sharing, Anand. I hope the audience are also listening keenly. For me, yes, I'm just highlighting, in a way, condensing what you were saying like a summary. Happiness is very intrinsic.
Yep.
Many of us seek it outside, and I think for the young students out there, some of us are blessed with this emotional quotient very early in life, where some of them are very mature for their age. Some of us learn only by experience, where you find those anchors in your life, either be it your best friend, sometimes it's your parents who become your guide, sometimes it's your college professors who become your lifelong friends because of the guidance you seek from them. I always am reminded of this movie Avatar, where the bond that is formed between the animal and the avatar itself is more like the animal tries to kill this person, the avatar first. I forgot the actual terminology, the more interesting one. If any of you remember, tell me. But the idea is here to understand, like Anand said, when you are ready, I think the mentor appears. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. They say happiness is really not something that you would seek from outside. It's already what is within you that will get amplified. So a vigorous yes for that. And a mentor is someone who's your mirror. Things that you get very familiar with yourself, they highlight and make you uncomfortable in a way where the nudge is very positive. You feel like you're growing wings, not that there is a heaviness, you feel like you're not enough. So I totally relate to some of these life lessons. And the most important point is, these points in your life only make sense when you look back, when you turn around and say, now I know why I loved physics when I was young. No, it's not probably the chemical structure of petroleum, but I could relate it to, I could relate to this because I flunked in math in my public exam. Not something that I'm very comfortable or happy sharing with, but I wish, I was so mature to take a decision where I knew my love for flora and fauna very early in life, or I knew I'm going to end up in an IT sector where microbiology is going to be of no use. But certain things only you walk and you tell yourself, very insignificant we are, and it's good the more lessons we learn, we become more adaptable. We make use of our intelligence in a way ready to be prepared for the ever evolving world. So the learning mindset, to adopt a mentor, to look at happiness from within, it was so lovely because we can relate, each of us can relate to your life lessons. We've got some brilliant questions coming in, where I'm actually telling the audience now, let's keep the questions more aligned to the topic of the conversations. I'm so sorry, we will not have any political discourse today. It will be a disappointment if you come here with such questions, but we have some really interesting one coming your way, Anand. Like you said, some of it I can also, partake in answering, because it talks about how would you describe a retail customer evangelist of Shell? How does Shell deal with customer satisfaction? I think these two go well together, because I think you cannot address customer satisfaction if you're not a true evangelist. The term that is more popular these days, thankfully after some of us in the tech spoke more about evangelism. Yeah. So about that, and what makes Shell unique? So I think these three for now go together. And there are questions also on how this will impact the business, the pandemic, and how business growth will be post COVID. So I think if I have to coherently put the questions, tell us some more highlights on how do you evangelize customer delight. Some of the things we spoke about this morning, the wonderful kiosk we have in Shell. Number two, what will be, your predictions for the, expected recession? What does post-COVID look like in the oil and gas industry? How do you define more and more as a retail customer evangelist if that is true, if you agree with it? So we'll go with this first, and then I think I'll take a look at the other questions and sum it up for you, Anand.
Sure, sure. Thank you.
If I'm not clear, please let me know.
Nope. Absolutely clear. And
Sure.
and I think I'll try to put this in about three buckets.
Sure.
So what makes Shell unique? One, very glad to hear that someone is looking at Shell being unique. So thank you very much for looking at Shell being a unique, and I'm assuming it is positively unique. So I take that as a compliment. In case that's not, please clarify. I'm here to learn more as well. I guess it's about the people. Yeah. I guess it's about the people who are making that difference real. Yeah. If I were to kind of look at it in that way. Because we are not fundamentally doing anything different. This is my belief. If you look at, when you go to I'm assuming like you, Kupu, there would be a few others who are in this call who would have driven into a Shell petrol station. And those of you who would have gone into a Shell petrol station, you would have seen that as far as products are concerned and services are concerned, we essentially have fuels, main grade and premium fuel, which we call as V-Power petrol. And then we have a convenience retail offer, which Kupu, you suggested it as a kiosk. So that's a convenience retail offer. It's under the name Shell Select. And there is a oil change proposition for the bikes and the cars. Now, this is typically what you get as a standard offer for any customer who drives into any of our sites in this country. Yeah. Apart from this, you can expect a clean toilet. You can expect your airs for the tire to be filled up by our staff. Now, how do these products and services evolve? It evolves based on our understanding of the why, the purpose, which is to make meaningful difference in people's life. Now, we are in the business of serving motorists who are traveling from point A to point B. And like I was telling to you in this morning as well, Kupu, today they're choosing to travel by bikes, cars, lorries. Tomorrow it could be, and today it's all these vehicles are filled with petrol or diesel. Tomorrow it could be electric. We don't know whether it is CNG, LNG, whatever is the choice of fuel, or people would choose to walk, people would choose to cycle, but people will continue traveling. People will move. As long as people will move, and which is what we strongly believe they will continue to move, we have a relevance to serve their needs. We have a relevance to serve what is important for their vehicles, as well as what is important for themselves. So I guess products and services, when I look at it, it might look unique in Shell, like Kupu, you were stating in the beginning, but these are stuff I strongly believe is replicable. It is replicable, and a few of the competitors have already done it, whoever are in the petroleum retailing space. But what I truly believe is unique to Shell are the people who serve these products and services to our customers. So our people is where I believe the difference really lies. and what we do with them, how we work with them. I think that precisely is where I draw my own personal inspiration from. You also were talking about customer evangelist, yeah, or how to look at delight element. It goes back to the point that I was telling earlier, Kupu. It's really about if my employees at the petrol station, which are my service champions, if they know very clearly what they are doing, and they are just going beyond products and services. So they are looking at creating wow experiences for our customers, and that's the pursuit. Yeah. When I'm saying that's a pursuit, it's very hard to reach that pursuit on a daily basis, on every transaction or every customer basis, but we are striving towards that. We track it very closely at a site level. There are many aspects of our site operations that are intrinsically built that can take care of the how part of our serving the purpose, which is how are these wow moments created? How did the conversations go between our service champion and the customer? Did our service champion wish the customer? Did the service champion look at the customer in his or her eyes? Was a tone of my service champion the right way? Yeah, did he or she smile? All of these aspects are very intrinsically built in, right from recruitment to training, evaluation, and then feedback. Yeah, so the rewards and remuneration are just not linked to sales. It's actually linked to the behaviors that drive sales. And we are very, very critically looking at that one particular aspect. Are we doing the right things that serves our purpose? Yeah. So the outcome, I believe, Kupu, is that you leave the customer in as many instances as possible truly evangelized, yeah, truly delighted, because the people who are serving customers are truly looking at that particular aspect when they're serving the customer. Now, I would assume any customer-centric brand would deal with their business through their front line with keeping this in their mind. Yeah. So the way in which they recruit, train, evaluate, provide feedback, recognize, reward, speak about behaviors that drive the end outcome or the tip of the iceberg that we talked about. Sales are the organizations which will always thrive on customer delight. You look at Amazon. Yeah. Now that's a completely online platform. And what do they say in their purpose? Right? If you see, it's really about delighting customers. And in many experiences, at least 9 out of 10, me as a customer, I have felt it. I have felt it every time I have dealt with Amazon, that their interface, the whole platform, the way in which returns are handled, every little aspect is taken. Now, there is surely a method to that madness. It's not by luck. The organization is truly believing in it. The organization is putting all its might and resources to ensure that every transaction, every interaction that their people or their interface does with the customer is truly serving that purpose, right? So I would believe thereby, as long as we keep it simple, we keep it as simple as why are we doing what we are doing, and just look at getting that particular aspect sharpened, there's always a room for improvement on a daily basis. Yeah, because you will never be achieving a perfect 10 out of 10. You might achieve it today. I'm sure you're going to slip tomorrow, because we are talking about people. And I don't think people will completely get replaced. Yeah, we are all going to have our relevance in some way or the other, because we are social animals at the end of the day. We are social animals, and we would love to see, meet, greet people. And that's what makes us what we are. The third part, which you spoke about regarding post-COVID, I think when I look at my own reflection, it really depends on how we have responded to the situation till now. Yeah. So if we have responded to the situation now, February, did I know, or March first week, let me get very, very close. March 11th or 12th is when the first case hit, say, in Bangalore, before most of the other cities. Means Kerala was hit first, but then we didn't have our operations over there, Shell. When it hit us first, did I know the level of impact it's going to leave? Yes, I did have my learnings from my colleagues from China. Yeah, so Shell has got its operation in China. We did know there are learnings from incidents that was getting shared, but till such time it hits you, Kupu, you don't act, and that's the way we are all wired, right? Because there are so many other priorities that are in front of us. So when it hit us, I think this is where that purpose comes really, really handy. The purpose helped us to respond to the situation in the most apt manner. We didn't panic. Yeah. Our biggest thing was immediately to take care of ourselves and our people, nothing else. Okay. If that required and we were in the realm of essential services. Yeah. Petrol stations are in the realm of petroleum essential services. So we were expected to be open. But people who need to serve to keep the sites open, they were under immense pressure. So the first 2 weeks, if I were to see me and my team, the only thing that we were doing, and I was moving out, I was telling you in the morning also, right from March 23rd, 24th, I was moving out because I got a pass. I made sure that I'm visiting my sites. So were every member in my team. Why? Because the most important thing personally for us was, are my people safe? My service champions, my retailers. If it needed our sites to be closed, we took those decisions that our sites will remain to be closed because my people are not safe. So we focused on the clinical safety of our people and the psychological safety. If they were not feeling safe, right, and they continue to be in that zone, we continue to share communications to them on a daily basis. Our level of engagement went completely to a different level because our purpose was very clear. We wanted to take care of our people first. Yeah, if they are there, then our business is there. Otherwise, nothing is there. So why I chose to talk about how we responded to the situation, I'm sure it would be the same with most of the customer facing businesses. And I've also myself heard about a lot of businesses who exactly did the same thing. Fundamentally, nothing great, but it takes courage to just focus on that. Don't worry about your business, business outcomes, right? Because your people are the one who will bring it back to you also. You take care of your people, you take care of yourself. These are the same set of people who will go all the way out and get the business back to where it belongs to. And it's just a normal aspect. Yeah. So we focused on responding very well. We had certain resilient parts of our business, right?
Yeah.
We were just not selling petrol and diesel. We had a convenience retail shop. And that was a eureka moment for us, that even when vehicles stopped moving and people started moving on their vehicles on the road, or they were restricted to move, they started walking down to our shops. Yeah, and we were practicing social distancing right from the beginning, and we continue to do that as much as possible. So there are cases wherein customers get a little disgruntled also. Yeah, so why are you becoming so very nosy? And they talk about all of these things to our service champions, and not all times my service champions are able to convince them that this is in their good and in their good. Yeah. So we practiced all of these aspects. We made sure that our supply chain of our convenience retail goods was well taken care by our teams. Net effect was that this resilient part of our business, which didn't need vehicles to move on the road, kept us relevant in the business. So we continued to do a great job around the convenience retail part. We continued to stay relevant around products and services in that space. And because of which, I believe post-COVID, and every company, every brand, every customer-centric brand who have done the right thing and who have had resilient business models are only here to stay. My strong belief is they will here to stay because they have themselves attended to this crisis in a completely unplanned manner. We didn't prepare for it. Yeah. But we responded in the right way. We had resilient business model. Thereby, we know what more we need to do. And we have continued bringing new products and offers in the last 2 months. I don't think we have brought into our shops any more number of SKUs than ever before. We've been running the convenience retail offer for the last 5 years now, very seriously. But in the last 2 months, such is the pace at which we have brought, say, eggs, breads, milk, all the products that we didn't have, say, in February, and all of these things. We are not sure if all of them will stay, but then it was relevant for now. That was extremely important. Some of them will stay and we will evolve. As long as we have that mindset to learn, adapt, bring about a positive change, then I think everything else will fall in its place.
I absolutely agree, because in my mind I'm painting a picture where I can see how there is COVID in the center, and if you have to put it in a seesaw, one is going back to the basics in every section of our life, and you also be prepared for the future, not knowing exactly how to define future, right? So when you're talking about electric vehicle section that Shell will eventually look at, or going back to the basics on, okay, now there will come a time when you will refocus your strategy on the future and start looking at how locomotives or the future of transport will look. But right now I love how the focus is steered towards more on serving the everyday needs of people and keeping that customer experience as aligned as possible to what Shell is. Interestingly, we have been receiving questions, and unbeknownst to yourself, you have answered some of them, because you can see a pain when they type the year 2020 has been bringing one news after the other, but we've been in a way where we're passively talking about it without having attached our responsibility as human beings. We've been ignoring the impending climate change that comes. Many of us have not really looked at our quality of life in terms of how we destroy the nature or how much garbage each of our household produces, or how self-sufficient we are. Do you spend that much time to grow at least one spinach, or you just throw a rotten tomato and something comes out of it? So it's nice how we are talking about going back to basic, like say, survival skills and the futuristic skills, because now we have a bunch of students that are, questions are really nice. They're ranging from how do we go back to talking about the importance of empathy during this time of pandemic with relation to customer experience, and number two, someone is also talking about one or the other news. This is 2020 has been treating us with, right from Australian bushfires to now the cyclone Nisarga that's has made its landfall. But now, how do we even talk about anything when we don't know what next month or the next month is going to bring? That, I think, requires a philosophical angle for us all to look at, saying this too shall pass, or human beings are one of the most resilient people who have always believed in evolution. Our history stands testimony for that. After all the industrial booms that we had the Great Depression, but still we are preparing ourselves for the next 4.0, right? That's coming up our way. Anyway, we were looking at artificial intelligence and machine learning and how it is going to define our future. But at the same time, it's really nice, like I said, when some of the questions are really asking about, we know not everyone is wearing masks. How do you make it more effective when it comes to when you have to wear a mask and talk to people? How do you even see that it will interfere with customer interaction? This is really, really good. I know where this is coming from, and I'll just put together through 2-3 questions, because they all come from the same place of which part of the brain they are using at this time, interestingly. So they are saying, some of them are saying, really new managers are interactive, they're confident, they have great communication skills, but still they lack empathy. That is very important, because right now all of us are dealing with an overwhelming every day. There is, for me at least, there are no 2 days that look similar, where even starting from my coffee tea time to the time I wake up or go to bed, or when will I sit with my daughter for her homework, today will it be my husband who will take care of the lunch and the dinner, or will it be me? With all of this, You have to take care of your everyday work. Initially, it looked like, wow, you're saving time, especially now, Anant, when you're in Bangalore. It looks like, you want to save that traffic time, the time that you get ready for work. But it looks like all of us have gotten busier. There is no set routine, everything is disrupted. So it's nice that someone's asking about the lack of empathy, impatient in customer dealings at this time. Someone even asked, I perhaps gently dismissed not having to talk about, having a political discourse here. But I also see on Twitter, um, retail sectors like ShopClue, for example, they're doing Shopify, I think, a wonderful trend setting and example setting where they're trending with Black Lives Matter, and they are highlighting all the black people who are running businesses. So Shopify is actually highlighting them via their social media account. So there is a nice intersection of good managerial skills versus leadership skills. How do we bring ourselves to the crossroad of going back to the basics in terms of safety, like you said, and how it interferes with the customer experience? I think in that, so if I have to put four roads of intersection, one is this: how human beings are still not, ready, though good communication skills, lack of empathy on one road. Two, how it is interfering with customer dealings, also with all the political things that are happening in the US and everywhere else. The third angle I want to bring is we are talking to students and faculty together this evening. One of them has asked a very interesting or important question. If you have to say, sir, it's so nice and wonderful to hear all your life lessons. Yes, I want to keep upskilling myself. I want to be ready for uncertainty. And I want to keep changing where, I get accustomed to the new job requirements. But here I am, my anxiety is killing me where this year's graduate, we don't even know what kind of employment that will be there. So the third road will be where this comes and joins the conversation, the impending existing layoffs and the immediate unemployment that we will see. Parents have paid really hefty money for college fees and, finishing graduation. So how are we going to address this? So the fourth road, I will leave it as the basic human psychology. Many a times I see people even on Twitter, we keep forgetting that we humans are a sum of so many things put together. There are people at this time who, for example, come on Twitter and say, okay, if you're going to be very vocal about supporting one political party, feel free to unfriend me. So where is the mental health at this time? How am I even supposed to brace myself and be positive when I know from where this is coming from, right? I'm sitting in a very comfortable job. I know I'm going to get a steady paycheck. Every day there is a reminder for the privileges we have. You don't know whether you're supposed to feel guilty for these privileges you work so hard for in your life, or are you going to thank your luck for having been born in the 80s where don't worry about this impending boom that's going to come and hit all of us. At least I can safely retire if I am not ready to upskill. So this is a collective mess, Anand. And from where I see, from my experience, Zoho at least had its place in business continuity practices because in Chennai we had a flood one year and then we had Cyclone Varda, because Chennai is the main operation center for us. It's like the warehouse where the developers, coders, everyone sit and create software. But otherwise, there are small offices everywhere, but most of the sales people, our friends, our colleagues sit here and work with 8,000 people sitting here in Chennai. So we learned tough lessons on business continuity because at that time, we didn't have data centers in India. Many of the sales people sat here and telephone lines were disconnected. But much of our revenue came in the form of dollars and pounds, where our customers were from across the world. How did we get ready for COVID? Was many of the failure lessons, sheer embarrassment on social media, how we dropped the basket on many small businesses because our sales personnel couldn't get back. Chennai was really hit when Varda was the epicenter here, and then we lost even several of the employees, property. So their priority everyday life changed. You know, they couldn't really come to be the frontline people serving the customers. They had to take care of themselves. So today, if we have something called a business continuity practices, they are nothing but the lessons we learned. We couldn't ignore from those failures, or the unknowing part of when nature gives us with a reminder to take care of her, to not ignore mighty mother nature. So I will leave you. Please give us some insights on getting back to the basics and how you would want to answer some of the unemployment that's coming up. Is Shell looking at any project where you will deal with these young minds or something? Um, what do I say? Personally, give us tips for keeping us afloat during this storm. Thank you.
The starting comment is we are all in it together, Kupu, and as you rightly told, a few are within quotes privileged in whatever way, and it's completely relative, isn't it? I might feel privileged of having a job. Somebody else is privileged that he or she is learning. Yeah, now it all depends on how you view it. And as much as philosophical it can sound, let me maybe count on something that as an organization, I might be lucky to have a job now. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a job in the next 1 month. Now, with or without COVID, I think this is always there. Let's accept it. Okay. The day that you think I deserve, the day that I think I command, then I'm lost. Maybe COVID has helped each one of us to get things in perspective. Okay. But otherwise, whether I will have a job or not, whether I will have opportunities or not, has always been under question. Okay. If I don't keep an open mindset to learn, in my view, that's the end of all. That's really the time that a human being ceases to exist. When the learning mindset stops, and you did talk about it also. Colleges, people who are graduating, if you were to kind of see, are there going to be job opportunities? Come on, let's accept it. It's going to be there. Okay. I'm a super positive person by nature. Okay. That's why I don't think about things that I can't control. COVID, I was not able to control. My organization was not able to control. The world is not able to control. So why do I need to waste my energies around the aspect that I can't directly control? I can control myself. I can control the people whom I care for, my family, my people who are working along with me. That's about it. Let's not be too very responsible for early influence, and with that limited influence that we have, we can create magic. We can create magic to ourselves. We create magic to people as well. So Shell, for the first time, Royal Dutch Shell, for the first time in the history since World War II, has rebased its dividends by 2/3 to its shareholders. It's never happened. Okay. Now, did at the beginning of the year my CEO know exactly that he's going to do this? No way. No way. But did he have to wait along with the EC to take this decision till the time our annual closing of the year had to happen? No. In my view, it was a very courageous decision. And we all love for him and the EC for it, that he caught the bull by its horn and told, hey, shareholders, it's not only us. So there's been impact on our remuneration, on our retailers, the ability for them to earn the same amount of money that they thought they will earn at the beginning of the year. Everybody is hit. Okay. So my EC was very, very candid enough to go back to the shareholders and told that, guys, you also need to take a equal hit into it. Yeah, it's not a case that we will return back the same kind of money that we were returning till last year. So we rebased, our EC rebased the whole dividend structure by 2/3. Now these are unprecedented for an organization like Shell. And we can always ask, oh my God, didn't you have enough cash reserves to tide over this crisis? Look at the impact that has happened together with the demand that fell. What companies like us had to take an impact was really around the falling oil prices, the one that you spoke about as well. Yeah, it was a double whammy for us. So we had to take certain decisions. But what did we intrinsically believe in making meaningful difference in people's life? There has been not any layoffs till this particular point of time, okay, within Shell. Now that's something that we clearly preserve. However, what will be happening, like any business, we as a business are also reimagining ourselves. We as a business are also reinventing the pieces that will be relevant to take care of uninformed crisis such as this. Nobody were prepared for COVID. Now, do I exactly know December a cyclone is going to hit and thereby my business? No, I don't know. But can I build resilience into my business in such a way so that it can help me tide through, so that my people are taken care, and the organization's larger purpose, which is to be a responsible energy player towards the whole energy transition. We're committed to that cause. Because we are committed to that cause, we need to be relevant for now and for the next year. That way we made certain decisions which are important so that we remain relevant irrespective of whatever happens. Now, if you look at interns who have joined us this year, the classical thing could have been to let the interns know, and classical timing, right? February March is when it hit. Interns were to join us in April. A lot of companies told no to interns, right? Now, like many other companies, we told, yes, we need you. We've signed up for you. We came to your campus. We loved you. That's why you have an internship with us. Now, just because the ship has shaken, do I go back to the commitment that I made to my people? Yeah, in this case, interns, we clearly know it's only a 2 months kind of a partnership that we're going to have, but then we remain committed to that cause. So across the globe, interns with Shell had their internship.
That's wonderful to hear. That is
completely
really
completely virtually. And look at an organization like us, Kupu. We are not a virtual organization, right?
Yeah.
We are a very, very real physical kind of people.
Correct.
So
you did put yourself in an uncomfortable spot of embracing technology, different ways to hire people, understand them virtually. That's another, I think, section to talk about another day. Go on, please. Thanks. Yeah.
True. Absolutely true. So we got the interns, and in fact, all of them are going to successfully go out of the internship in another week from now. They are all presenting their internship with their respective mentors. Now, it's important that we understand the perspectives very clearly. And to the students who are in there, your concerns are valid. Let me tell that your concerns are valid, but please don't think that the world is going into a gloom. Okay, there are many things that will happen, will continue to happen. Embrace it in the sense, what can you do about it? And I'm sure people who thought they're going to work for corporates, I'm sure these opportunities will plant that little seed in your thought. Hey, you know what? I'm not going to work for anyone. I'm going to set up something of my own. And I will not be surprised. A lot of people who are passing out from colleges in this year specifically are going to take destiny onto their hands. They are not going to maybe think about career options that will be dependent on somebody else, right? Now, there aren't many brands that care for its people, right? And it's not going to be very easy for employees also to pick those companies. So I'm assuming a lot of pass outs, graduates this year and next year are going to build their own destiny. So they're going to be becoming entrepreneurs. They are looking at spaces that they can clearly be in control of, because this, in my view, as a mindset, is going to come in. That everybody will know that there are very many things that we can't control. Let me just control the only definitive thing, which is myself and what I can do about it. Political things that are happening around the world, once again, now a space that I can't control. There are many things that are happening. Why don't we just focus on to things that we can control, yeah, and things that I can do. Now, in my organization, I will be uncomfortable if I see non-inclusive or a behavior that's non-inclusive in nature. I personally can't tolerate it. I will not tolerate anyone who is able to tolerate it. Okay. And thereby, I choose and I continue to work for such an organization because it is in my belief system. And this organization also believes in some of these things. Now, that's something that I can control. Can I control what's happening in US? No, I can't. But what I can control is in making my workplace as diverse as possible. So irrespective of the gender or any kind of diversity that a person brings in, it's the human being that's of importance. Gender is just one part of diversity, isn't it? But inclusive behavior is precisely where we try to put in a lot of energy, and it's just not in corporate world. It's about our retail site also. So if you go to a petrol station, you will definitely see women staff working with men staff. Point number one. You will see differently able staff working at our retail site. Now, we have picked up 2 pieces of diversity, and there are many, and I am challenging myself as well as my team to embrace diversity in complete sense.
Fantastic.
But we have taken certain efforts to at least be taking certain efforts that we can practically influence. So women staff at our sites and differently able staff at our site. It's not easy. It's just not easy because our retailers need to be committed to that cause. They need to do everything possible so that it's just not a number, but these people truly create magical moments to our customers. Because if they are not happy, if they don't feel included, if they are marginalized to do only certain type of tasks at a retail site, then they're not going to be involved. So our whole push to our retailers is, irrespective of who the human being is, the person should be able to do any task at the retail site, right? Be it filling the air.
I'm going to, this is a moment, okay, very important statement that you made. I want the listeners, especially the students, to internalize this. What you said right now from an angle of inclusivity, especially when you underline it, saying it's just beyond the gender, it's amazing because one very fascinating takeaway for me is, I hope it is for the students, here is a chance where they can do their own research to see which part of the growth story that they want to put their intellectual investment in. Many a times when we see young generation
Absolutely.
wanting to choose a job opportunity, most of the times the natural focus is towards, you know, the societal pressures of settling down. You know, which way can I take where the job that I take helps me settle down or earn that respect from majority
Right.
of them. But looking at the past conversation in the few minutes from what you shared with us, if you're going to stay true to who you are and, you know, pick an organization where your value systems match with that of the growth of, you know, the big picture. In this way, I think learning becomes a lot easier and puts you on a happy path than getting yourself overwhelmed or feeling that, oh, this is what would I want to do in the next 5 years. The one thing that we see also in the younger generation is we wish for them to stay as long as we do, you know, in an organization. I've been with Zoho for little over 10 years now, and I was working before. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this helps in, you know, identifying who I am, to align myself more with the organization's vision in a true way where I'm helping the organization grow and there is a personal growth. I'm not seeing myself jumping from one job opportunity to other because I truly aligned my, you know, personal principles with that of the organization. Now, inclusivity is one of those, you know, most important things that people have to write in their list when they think they have to sit through interviews or when they have to choose even for internship. I think the young generation have the power to accelerate the change some more, where by asking questions in interview, they force organizations to change. Do you have a diversity and inclusion, process? No, not just in papers. Can I know some numbers? How nice it will be if there is an interview where equal power is there on the table, where I can ask the HR some questions. Hopefully, I will get my offer letter after that. But this moment that you said has been brilliant highlight for me. One of the many highlights in the evening. Can you also share some highlight on empathy, because there are questions on how do you think chatbots can change customer engagement, because we're looking at the future of robotics. We're looking at how we will infuse many of these robots into customer experiences. I mean, in Zoho, we day in day out we talk about this. Put live chat on your websites. You don't have to have one human, like a physical shop. You don't have to one human, whether or not the customers come, rain or shine. I'm sitting there in the shop, but you go do all the other things and make sure your customers are taken care of. Where do you put empathy in that? So I think there are almost 24 questions, but if the fundamentals, see, if you revolve, it is about the uncertainty from a student's angle. Where is my future? Can I start up or not? How do you put empathy in terms of customer experience when we look at AI coming into the picture? Mainly the impact of COVID in the corporate world. I think mostly it revolves around this. So if you can share any parting note, because reminder number one has already come my way on wrapping this conversation. I don't want us to, after this, it's reached a nice a crescendo of sorts. I don't want it to abruptly end. So tell us about empathy, chatbots, uh, students who are very, very scared about this uncertainty in the future. So how, personally also as a representative of Shell, what do you have to tell us? Anything else that I did not cover in the questions as promised that you want to highlight? Let's please have that as a parting note. How do we keep this conversation going with the very many brilliant questions that the students have asked? I think finally when Jairam comes back into the picture, we will leave it for him to answer. I really want to answer all questions, but let's wait for the last few minutes. Over back to you, Anand.
Sure, Gopal. Thank you. So, three pieces, right? Empathy, evolutions of technological advancement that has happened around, say, chatbots and customer experience, and students. How are they going to pick this piece up? Yeah. See, what's empathy? Empathy is a very, very human behavior, right? And it's with people who demonstrate that we get moved, isn't it? And are everyone born with that empathy? I don't think so. And it's only through experiences that we all get evolved in that space. And so have I also. And do I always have empathy? Always? No, not at all. I'm a human being at the end of the day. There are times that I lose my empathy, but then being self-aware is more important than anything else. If I'm self-aware, if I'm able to know where my blind spots are, if I believe empathy is important for me and my personality, then I'm going to correct it. That's pretty sure. Now, do everyone put empathy right on top of their personality and their traits? No. Now, does it mean that they are bad? No, not at all also. Yeah, that's why every human being is different. But if people choose empathy as a trait that they need to build, then they need to be self-aware. Yeah, where are the blind spots? Be brutally honest to yourself. You're not here to convince anyone else. You're just here to convince yourself. So if you're brutally honest to yourself, your brain will tell you, your heart will tell you when you're going wrong. And I'm sure it's an iterative process. You correct yourself, right? So I'm only telling that this becomes far more real for people who really want to get more empathetic about how they go about leading their lives. Yeah. So being self-aware, knowing about your blind spots, and then course correcting it through an iterative process, and you need to practice. There's no other shortcut to this. Now, if I were to kind of connect it towards, say, some of those technological advancements and chat box, you need to take this with a pinch of salt, Kupu, and I'm sure you will bail me out on this as well. Is I have personally not been a big fan of chat box. Yeah, I'm a person, and this is me. Okay, I'm a person who has always loved to pick up the phone and speak to a customer service executive. Yeah, I'm not a person who talks about my concerns over an email, right? When an email is required, an email serves its purpose. Simple. But if I have to explain my problem, I've not felt emails always understand or is the right medium. And so is the case with Chatbox. Now in Chatbox, in the recent last 2 months, I did have my experience around chat boxes as well. It will take time, is what I assume, for the whole artificial intelligence to understand some of these aspects and thereby be able to provide responses. Otherwise, what have I seen? All I have experienced is, oh, your question is not as per the template, right? You select from these. Now, here I am trying to talk about an issue and the chat box tells, no, it's out of syllabus, right? It's not great for me. Yeah. So, but I'm sure there will be developments that will happen. It's an iterative process and it will get better. Is it going to, so my customer experience in that case was not good, because my first thing was, hey, come on, you're doing a good job. I think the concerns that you don't have your people at the call center is completely well taken, but I can wait. Yeah, I surely can wait. It's not so hard pressing. The good part about Chatbox is it takes care of 80-90% of the possible problems that that retailer or that brand has envisaged that the customer is going to face, and thereby has templatized that whole piece. So it's great. Firstly, for me, it was very customized kind of a thing, and it didn't work. And like I said, it is only going to get better as long as I see a brand, I see a organization that is able to resolve my issue. My credibility with that brand increases, and thereby trust on that brand improves. Thereby, my experience with that brand, loyalty, is going to get sustained. It's as simple as that. It's through my experience with that brand around solving my problem or serving my need. Delight is a second part, fundamental functional part of what my need was. If it is served, then it is great. Then goes the whole delight element. Yeah, what did that brand do in terms of proactively knowing what could be my problem and solving it? Yeah, so it goes to a whole new level then in that case. Students, I talked about it earlier as well, and Kupu, you also talked about it. I think I firmly believe that this is a time for you to reflect upon your own strengths, okay, and what you want to do. You don't need to really get too very bothered about too many things that are happening around you. Just put them all under the sphere of outside your influence. All you can do is around yourself. Keep an open mindset to learn. If you know that you need to work for an organization, be at it. I didn't get to Shell just because I just sent my resume and I was called for an interview. It took a good 3 years. 3 years it took, because in my mind, I was clear I wanted to work for this organization because I loved its values. I heard a lot of people who were working for Shell, and thereby I kept it. Yeah, so there were a lot of other offers that came my way, and I'm sure those offers are going to come your way even now. Yeah, the world is not going to stop, and if the world stops, you know what? All of us are not going to be existing, right? So we are all going to be there. We are all going to make meaningful difference to this world. We are going to make humongous progress, because with every crisis, the world has only progressed. Okay, so you look at history, World War I, World War II, be it the Spanish flu, everything has done certain things fundamentally different for the world and the human race. And I'm pretty confident it's going to happen the same way over here. So don't get deterred. All you need to do is keep hand on your heart and do the stuff that you truly want to do. Yeah, don't look at shortcuts. Don't get overtly interfered by, hey, you know what, if I don't pick up this opportunity, I'm not going to get. No, don't worry about it. But once again, get your purpose right. If you think today you need money, you need to repay your loans, be very clear, and you don't need to be apologetic to it. So pick up the offer that's coming your way. No problem. For all you know, that job could help you understand a few magical moments. For all you know, you might have your biases against that organization or that brand or what it stands for, but once you're getting into that organization, you will be knowing that it stands for something. Yeah, it stands for something unique. Else, you're reasonably clear in your head. You join that company only for money, isn't it? So be very, very clear. Take the money, do a good job about it, but be at it as far as your purpose is concerned. So don't take shortcuts. Don't look at things that can just satisfy for now as far as your happiness quotient is concerned. But be clear about your purpose. If you know that this is what you want to do, continue at it, because that's the only way that you keep progressing on a day-to-day basis. Leave alone 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I need to survive today. I need to stay happy today. If I'm happy today, then I'm going to keep people around me happy. And that's going to give me the license to lead a life tomorrow also. So I would try to put it in that way.
Especially when we are talking to B school students, when you said, put your hands in your heart, I thought you're going to sing out that song from Three Idiots and say, Jab life ho out of control, won't go like that. You know, tell yourself all is well. It has a very deep, it has a very deep meaning, you know. Now, if we don't understand the power of us human beings, understand how out of every adversity we have always come out stronger. And to the young students, we want to tell you all, like Anand said before, look out for that mentor now that will help you be emotionally safe, and also, you know, will give you a realistic picture of how the future looks. Not all of us, none of us here know what's going to come, what's going to happen at the end of 2020. That's the truth that many of us will be like this on this platform, willing to accept. There are some conversations, some organizations now who are even now, you know, shying away from the truth that is staring in our eyes. I'm so glad I got to ask these questions to Anand. And then it's very nice that in a very candid way, not from a script, you said it in a very human way possible. If we have guests from home, please ask her to feature in it.
Yeah, she's already in.
Yeah, hello. We'll let Dad go soon. Hi. So it is like while we have some of the questions unanswered, and some of the questions there are no answers now. You know, there's only by spending some more time will we able to find out. I had a wonderful time. I'm like this person who believes in writing things in my own handwriting. So the highlights were like, you know, being self-aware. How would you learn reaching different layers of lessons on empathy for your own self? How you realize that as an individual and as me part as an employee, as a bigger brand, can I be responsible, can I be inclusive, I can be self-aware, and I always focus on the human element wherever I am. In that way I can contribute my bit to keep the business very, very relevant, so that I at least have the mental strength to reimagine the future. If only I am all of this. When I reimagine the future, depending on how I have treated everyone in my organization, right from my immediate team, they are going to stay with me on this longer dream and say, paycheck or not, I'm going to be with you in making this vision possible, right? So be very true to your nature. Take this time to introspect. It's a combination of philosophy and real life skills. If you talk emotional intelligence has been so underrated during this time of pandemic. I think this has given us an opportunity to find our own chaos. You know, when they talk about the storm, the eye of the storm, if you stand at the center, it's always very peaceful. It's only the surrounding, the chaos that is going on. So focus on that. Talk to people who are, you know, emotionally more mature than you are. Find and hold on to them. They are the anchor that you need right now. wait for this to pass. You know, the biggest lesson in life, many of us learn only when we reach 40. The mantra is this too shall pass. Interestingly, yesterday I spoke to corporation school girl children who have no access to any of the infrastructure that many of us have. We had to talk about resilience to them. We see how students are getting overwhelmed. We lost a life in Kerala yesterday because she thought she cannot give her 10th grade exam when classes go online. So now is the time to do one healthy check on how better our lives are in compared to others. Hang in there, because change is always permanent, like Anand said. Pandemic or not, change is always going to happen. If not for the pandemic, in another 2-3 years time, all of us were going to find ourselves irrelevant in our job. Today in Zoho, back in Zoho, we have been talking about how some of us will be moved, between teams to use some of our experience in a really new area. Now that China has been closed, many of us have moved businesses away from that. India is going to look at being as self-reliant as possible, right? We see it in the news. Leave the politics aside, being Atmanirbhar is a thing. So how would you use your entrepreneurial mindset on solving some real problems? Don't focus always on the ROI, right, Anand?
True.
Stay true to who you are. It's okay after 2 years, you don't really find a meaning as to why you graduated from certain subject. Don't worry. A day will come when you look back and you will be able to connect the dots, and the story will be very visible and powerful. One day you will be in this platform conveying many lessons, intersection of life lessons, intersection of the failures, many lessons from our individual personalities you will be able to put forward. I think that is our parting comment from Anant and me, and I'm so happy that Business Standard and Jairam brought us together on this platform. To each of you who spent your time this evening with us, leaving behind what you were doing, thank you so much. Without seeing these numbers and the enthusiastic questions that is still coming, this conversation wouldn't have been had its temper, in the way we've kept the energy levels the same till the end. So Anant, a big thank you to you. Jairam, thank you so much for making this evening possible. And to every one of you audience for the brilliant questions. Thank you so much. This is Kupu signing off for this evening, hoping to connect with you all and with Anand. There is a lot of social media platform out there and you can find us. So we'll find a way to come back to you with another topic. Over to you, Jairam. Thank you, Anand.
Someone said we are surrounded by data but starved for insights. How true it is. Today's session, it was so insightful, and I believe the 300 students and faculty who had joined this session would have been inspired by the insights thrown by Anant and Kupu. And thank you, Mr. Anant, for your time, for your patience, and also for suggesting a very interesting and inquisitive topic. And thanks are due to Kupu for steering this session so wonderfully. In fact, if it was not for you, then maybe it would have been in a different format. But thank you, Kupu, for steering this session so wonderfully. And Business Standard is always delighted to enrich and enlighten the young minds. Beyond the newspaper, we have been associated with the B schools with a lot of initiatives which Kupu also knows. So that has helped us to carry forward our legacy, and we will continue with this webinars in the days to come, post lockdown also. So, and we look forward to have Mr. Anant also in our journey. So thank you, Kupu. And I have one question to Mr. Anant. There have been a lot of questions, as Kupu said. If you could find some time to answer these questions by email or this thing, maybe I can share with you. And
most definitely, most definitely. I was just about to talk about that, because as much as I would love to, obviously Kupu was doing such a wonderful job in terms of moderating this whole piece, but virtually impossible to kind of answer everything. But I'll surely give it my best shot. Mr. Jairam, a few things that I will not be able to comment with regards to my own organization.
Yes.
but everything that I can comment about the subject that
Yes.
has been asked for, more than happy to talk about it.
Okay.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much to you, Mr. Jairam, as well as Kupu, for such wonderfully moderating the session. And thanks to all of the participants who've been keen listener. And for all your questions, like I mentioned, I will surely do my best in terms of answering it to the best of my knowledge. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thank you all.
So thank you. We'll meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Kupu.
stay
Thank you,
safe.
Anand.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Stay safe, stay positive, stay calm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.